Hi, Sheila. Afternoon. I mean, Sheila, it's quite interesting that, and I'm not criticising you for this, you're entitled to your opinion. You have a very different opinion, and I'm a Jew, about Israel, and you're very defensive about Israel. And there you have Mr. Mencer, who is with a journalist who is extremely on his side, if ever there was one, and even he doesn't let you speak. And that sums up the Israeli government's position, that when even your good self seeks to make a point that might contradict the propaganda that Mr. Mencer comes out of his mouth, it defies belief. When he seeks to portray Iran that they're about to have a nuclear weapon, when the United States Secret Service and CIA made it clear before America attacked Iran that there was no possibility of them having a nuclear weapon, when the New York Times, in their expose, which I'm sure you're aware of, showed in the Situation Room Netanyahu sitting as an equal with the President of the United States and Mossad on the screen, where they convinced President Trump to do this, you have to question Israel and the relationship of Israel with the rest of the world. America.
Can I just say to you, when you say I'm fully on the side of David Mencer, I'm neither on or off the side of David Mencer. He isn't Israel. I am on the side of Israel existing. Israel should exist, in my view. You may disagree with that. I don't know. I also think it's obvious that it has enemies that want to obliterate it, and it's tiny in comparison to its enemies. It's got a powerful military. It's strong. It's got strong supporters. I don't deny that. But what I'm just stating to you, James, are some facts. It has enemies on a number of fronts that have done it grave damage. Now, we can have a conversation, and I was having that conversation with David Mencer about the scale of the damage they've done in response. Yeah. This idea of me being on the side of David Mencer or always on the side of Israel, it depends what the person saying it to me is coming at me with. Yeah. I'm not arguing with you coming up, you have your view and you've stated it clearly. All I'm saying is, honestly, I'm tired of it being, you're on the side of them, you're on the side of them. Shouldn't it be clear that nobody should be on the side of violent political jihadis? I'm not. Yeah, I'm sure you're not. And I challenged David Mencer on Israel's approach to Lebanon. I said to him, are we going to see another Gaza? But equally, when people start saying genocide about Gaza, I challenge that, because I say to them, there's a reason the numbers were so high in Gaza, and it's because Hamas doesn't give a stuff about the Palestinians in Gaza. It didn't build a single shelter for them. It spent all of the money that you and I and other taxpayers around the world gave to Gaza on weaponry, on tunnel building, on itself, on its own children's international Western educations. It's rotten. The whole thing is rotten. And to boil it down to who's on whose side, who thinks who's great, it's not enough, James. I'm not exercised because I'm taking it personally. I'm exercised because it's not good enough, and it isn't the truth.
But I think that, Sheila, the problem that we've got with people like Mr. Mencer, and you asked about the relationship with the UK, when you have a Prime Minister who is wanted by the ICC for war crimes, I think Keir Starmer and his stance on this war is the beginning of what Keir Starmer really thinks about Israel's behaviour. And I think it's about time that the Jews in this country start to realise that, yes, that ambulance attack was disgusting. Of course it's disgusting. I'm a Jew. And yes, anti-Semitic in inverted commas. But what do we think increases these acts of violence and anti-Semitism? Because the average person thinks that Jews are Israelis and they lump it together.
Well, therefore, they are racist bigots, aren't they? Because no other identity is traduced in that way because of something its government does. Nobody's doing it to Russians in Britain. We had a similar scenario when Islamists blew up parts of Britain and attacked people in Britain. Good, innocent Muslims face that same kind of ignorant bigotry, and we should call it out wherever it is. And when it comes to it being directed at Jews on the streets of Britain, I call it out wherever it is, James. I think you and I have a lot more in common than you might think. I really do. And I don't think it's even remotely decisively adjudicated as to who convinced whom to start this war on Iran. I don't think it's as simple as that at all. Thank you, James. James in Barnes for call. More of your calls after the news headlines. It's 2:30.
My call, Sheila.
How do you see it?
I think Mencer's an absolute joke. But I wanted to pull up, first of all, something that you said about the genocide thing really irks you. All I was going to say was the leading genocide scholars...
Sorry, I don't think I used the word irks at all.
I think the way I'm not too sure about the use of the word.
I remember my questions because I wrote them down. I asked him whether, as he used the word genocide for what Hezbollah was doing to Israel, could he respond to Israel's critics who say that what happened in Gaza and what could happen in Lebanon if this war isn't stopped could have the same language, the same words applied to it? And he said not, because theirs is an attitude of defence, not offence.
Right. Well, I mean, every single genocide scholar has said it's a genocide. Every single human rites organisation has said it's a genocide, including the ones in Israel.
They haven't. Sorry. My apologies. Which is a genocide?
What's happening in Gaza.
No, it's far from decided. I mean, listen, this sounds like dancing on the head of a pin, Aziz. Clearly, the suffering in Gaza has been horrendous, and the death has been horrendous. But it's absolutely wrong to say that every single human rights organisation has defined it definitively as a genocide. It's just not true. But I don't particularly want back and forth on that, simply because it's bad enough. We'll let the courts do what they do. We'll let the investigations happen, and we'll find out in time what the decisions are and whose decisions they are. But you and I are not qualified to say. I really don't think so.
I absolutely agree with you. I'm just going to finish with one statement on that. I hear you about letting the courts decide, but it's like climate change. You know what? You'll always find people who deny climate change. If you look at how many people are saying it's a genocide, if you look at how many people are, human rights watch organisations are saying it's a genocide versus who are not, that's a fairly straightforward sort of answer there for you.
I disagree that it's a straightforward answer at all, and I would point you to the International Courts of Justice, the head judge there, who has corrected the impression that's constantly put out there that the court itself ruled genocide to be plausible, that a plausible genocide was taking place in Gaza. That isn't what it ruled, and she's gone to great pains to explain that's not what it ruled. But, you know, we're not going to agree on the sort of fine points here, I don't think, Aziz, because you have decided that it is. I'm waiting to find out what the evidence tells us.
Right. But moving on about Britain's relationship with Israel, I find it's already broken, not by politicians, not by the media, but if you look at people, and if you speak to people about what they view the relationship with Gaza, if you look at the polls with Israel, you will find that it's no longer an ally. That's what the people think. And one of the rises of the Green Party, or the main things that are pushing them along, is dissatisfaction with the UK government's treatment of their situation and the treatment of Israel. So do you think that there will come a time, perhaps relatively soon, when the UK may say it can no longer stand by its alliance with Israel? Oh, I think the politicians are not going to be there, but I think the public are. And when it comes to election time, that's what's going to change it all. You're going to see the elections coming in Scotland with SNP. You're going to see it in, I think, next month as well with the council elections. Greens are going to surge. They're the main party of opposition for this.
But the very particular parts of the electorate, or do you think huge swathes of the electorate?
I think huge swathes. I think pretty much everybody in my circle that I speak to is aghast at what Israel is doing.
We can't make decisions about the entire nation's view based on our own circle, can we?
We can't. I'm just giving it as an example. But if you have a look at, say, in London, etc., I don't know anyone who's supporting Israel. And the truth of the matter is, it's happening. And I've got a very broad.
But when you say supporting Israel, what do you mean? You're talking to a woman who supports Israel. It doesn't mean I support everything Israel does, but I support it as a nation. I want it to exist. I think it has a right to exist. I want it to be safer than it is. I want the innocent people around it to be safer than they are. I want the jihadi groups like Hamas and Hezbollah gone from that area. I want Iran's regime to be gone from that area. So you're talking to somebody who supports Israel in that sense. But that doesn't mean you support everything they do and have no criticism of them. It's got to be more than this, to steal from James O'Brien, sort of footballification of the Middle East.
Oh, I agree with you. And if you look at Israel and its right to exist, of course it's got a right to exist. Of course.
No, you say of course. Lots of people don't.
Well, look, what I'm saying is, of course, it's got a right to exist. Of course, its citizens deserve to live in peace. But on the same token, all the surrounding people, everyone else deserves to live in peace as well. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of these forces, like Hezbollah, for example, they didn't exist until Israel invaded Lebanon. And we've got to find a way to find a peace. Right now, I'm just making a point. In the West Bank, they are going along, they're taking huge waves, they're dehousing people and moving along. Now, you've got to stop that. You've got to stop that straight away. So you don't
accept that every war since 1967, possibly even before then, but certainly since 1967, has been a war that was brought to Israel? You don't accept that?
No, I'm talking about now. Listen,
I would include this one.
No, see, the previous wars and aggressions and all the rest of that happened. I don't think it's a one-sided thing at all. And aggression was brought to Israel, and I agree with that. But I'm talking about now, in recent history, right now.
Can I ask you just bluntly on the relationship between the UK and Israel? What would, if in an ideal world for you and how you see it, what should Keir Starmer be saying this afternoon about the UK's relationship with Israel?
I think Keir Starmer should be saying we should treat Israel the same way we treat Russia.
OK, that's very clear. Thanks, Aziz. Rosie's called from Perth. Hello, Rosie. In Australia, in light of this latest attack on a synagogue in North London. Hi, Neil.
Hi, Sheila. My point is that the very term anti-Semitism causes discrimination. Now, Jewish people have been around in Britain for over 1,000 years, and we've had discrimination against Jews, against colour, against gender, and we developed a set of laws, religious discrimination, race, gender discrimination, sex discrimination, and they're really good laws, and they're progressive, and they're something we should be proud of. Mm-hmm. And things were fairly quiet after bringing in these laws. But what's happened now is this new definition of anti-Semitism. And what that does is include the state of Israel as part of being Jewish. And that's the problem. In that if the state of Israel does something that people don't agree with, that goes along with being Jewish. Right, so say, for example, the average person in Britain is kind of caring, and they care maybe about the civilians and the children of Gaza, right? And they have problems with what's happening to them. Now, it's the state of Israel. I don't want to get into the politics of Israel, but people are worried about that. But they're being told that if you say anything against that, you're racially discriminating. But also,
if you say anything against Israel, you are racially discriminated?
Yes, because you're discriminating against Jewish people by the anti-Semitism definition.
I don't think that's what the anti-Semitism definition says. I mean, I've just had a long. Well, hang on. It may allude to the state of Israel, but I'm looking up the exact detail now.
Well, that's a problem.
But sorry, hang on. It's okay that it alludes to the state of Israel if opinion about or actions about the state of Israel prompt you to attack a Jew in Britain.
Yeah. So right, the discrimination against Jewish people is connected with the state of Israel. you see what I mean? In the term anti-Semitism. So
but the term anti-Semitism
if people say anything about Israel,
Neil, the term anti-Semitism long predates the existence of the State of Israel.
It wasn't really used until recent years. Right, the definition is.
Well, we certainly needed to name it, didn't we? Given it had certainly a 2,500 year history.
Okay, but there's a special. We already have laws about racial and religious discrimination. We don't need a new one that calls in the State of Israel.
Okay, okay. Let me deal. Just a minute. So that we're having a conversation in sequence. The Israel bit. I've got it in front of me now. The Israel bit of what you say is the definition of anti-Semitism, and it was a definition that was restated or redefined in 2016, wasn't it, by the Holocaust Remembrance Alliance that we in the UK accepted. This was after the Labour fiasco. The definition: anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hate. I'm reading this now as hatred toward Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed towards Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and/or their property, toward Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. Examples: the definition includes examples such as, and we're getting to Israel now, such as accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel than their own nation, therefore to be suspicious of, claiming the existence of Israel is a racist endeavour, and using dehumanising, demonising, or stereotypical allegations about Jews. Now that definition of that part of the definition, we're seeing contraventions of every 5 seconds in this country at the moment, are we not?
Right. My point is the State of Israel should have nothing to do with this, because British Jews are being equated with the Palestinian government. Not the Palestinian government, the Israeli government. And they've got nothing to do with it. They're British.
Yeah, but Neil,
some of them support the actions of the government, some don't.
I know. If it's wielded against them as a reason for burning their business down, we have to address it in the anti-Semitism laws, don't we?
No, and they're not laws. We should use the anti-religion or anti-race discrimination laws we already have. We shouldn't bring in something new to deal with it. The same with Islamic stuff, putting stuff under Islamophobia. We should use existing laws which are good to deal with it. And it keeps separate Jewish people from Israeli politics.
And if an anti-Semite, sorry to use the words, just for the purposes of our clarity in our conversation, if an anti-Semite says you're more in favour of Israel than your own country, or, oh, you're a Jew, you support Netanyahu then, do you? Or words to that effect, you don't think the word Israel needs to appear in the laws that would protect those people?
As far as Britain's concerned, it should have no other countries involved. It should just be about discrimination in Britain. The affairs of other countries are their own, and not ours.
Do you believe that you regularly see people being accused of anti-Semitism simply because they criticise Israel or question the actions of Israel?
Yeah.
Give me an example.
Very much so. Like people who are protesting against Gaza are being accused or even arrested.
Well, not all of them are. The ones who use good old-fashioned anti-Semitic tropes invoking Israel and dead babies. Well, they're not actually in the numbers they should be.
Right. I'll make no comment on Israel and Palestine, the war, whatever. Just talk about people in Britain. But what's going on in Israel is affecting British Jews, and people who aren't happy with what's happening, say, to the civilians out in the Middle East, are looking at Jewish people and saying, well, anti-Semitism, they're the same. Israeli people and Jewish people are the same, which is obviously not true. But that's
so why aren't we attacking Russian Orthodox churches? Why aren't we attacking Sudanese churches in this country or Sudanese mosques in this country? Why aren't we looking around the world at other wars and deciding that we want to attack individuals in this country who hail from that country? Why?
Right, Sudan isn't in the news, basically. But I remember when the Troubles were on in Ireland, that Irish people were being attacked in England because of the Troubles, the wars that were going on in Northern Ireland.
On the same scale, Neil? In the same way? I don't think it was. Speaking of somebody who was raised by two Irish people at that time, it wasn't remotely on the same scale or in the same nature. It just wasn't. And do you know why? Because the people who wanted to do it didn't have a handbook, about a mental handbook about how to do it. And people do these days, sadly. Thank you, Neil. Excuse me, voice is going. Rossi in Edgware. Hello, Rossi.
Hi, thank you for having me. I just wanted to say a couple of things. I really liked, I think it was Nevy or perhaps the caller after her, that was saying about, what more could be done to help with what's going on at the moment. And I think one of the things that could be done, while the funding for security is needed and the infrastructure and guarding cameras and gates is all well needed, and I think the Community Security Trust is doing an amazing job, I think one of the other things that needs to be done is educational outreach to multi-faith schools, for example, where kids can learn about how we can integrate and be civil with each other.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Rossi. I'm sorry to cut you short just because I came to you quite late. That's my fault. I agree with you. The more we can speak with one another, to one another, learn from one another, the better. Thank you very much, Rossi. Rossi in Edgware. That's it from me for today. Thank you for all of your